Let's get started. Conscious of time, I don't think we can cover many questions. We do have some questions already prepared, so I have a couple of questions. I'm not sure if we can cover these two questions even. So I'd like to ask all these panelists to keep your answer brief. So my first question is for Mr. Ang Lee. This is quite general. So we do have like LG. Korea is a strong player in the battery field, including LG's energy solution. And like Mr. John stated, many Korean companies feel that it is a burden on them. And despite that, our Battery Industry Association and companies need to prepare well in response to these regulations. From your perspective, how well we can prepare for this regulation coming into effect?
Yes, thank you for the question. And I think actually that the presentation presented by LG is a good answer to the question, in the sense that economic operators know the main rules introduced by the regulation, so they know the field that they have to prepare, that they have to prepare the carbon footprint of their product, that they have to prepare the information that will go into the battery passport. And I think the best preparation is precisely to work with suppliers and with the different tiers of suppliers to prepare the ground, to explain to the suppliers what they will require in future, so that everyone can know what is coming and start gathering information or put in place the system that will provide this information later on. Even if the detail of the standards are not completely known, I think the main principles are known, and when the detail comes, then everyone should be ready to apply it.
Okay. 예, 감사합니다. 답변 중에 하여튼 그 표준에
So in Ang Lee's answer, he just addressed some standardization. So my question is around the standardization to Mr. Kunote. As one of our board members, actually I'm also involved in this standardization effort here in Korea. Many Korean companies need to have a better understanding of standardization. And you also touched upon that we have a tough timeline, and we have a very short, and you also addressed the practical challenges because of these tight timelines. But for companies, I believe that there's some gap, and our role is to bridge the gap. And at this point, and what I hear is that the standardization from the sense like it's almost complete, and it's currently it's under circulation, like you mentioned in your presentation. Anyhow, at this point, the Korean companies want to act fast. I mean, you should act fast so that we can get prepared for Korean companies and the stakeholders here in Korea. How the Korean stakeholders can participate in this process? Is there any efficient way for them to do?
Thank you so much for this question. And of course, even the German and European companies have to act fast. So for them, it's as well a nightmare. But anyhow, how to participate to that? There are at least 3 opportunities. One is related to the public inquiry, because when, for instance, Hyundai has a legal status in Germany, for instance, they can register to the national standardization body, to DIN, to the platform and can see what's happened there and even can comment. So this is one part. The other is that every company who is listed in Europe can participate to the standardization. So they can be registered, they can request to be part of the standardization. At least the fourth one is by applying and attending to public consultations, yeah, to webinars and so on, to see how this will go into force and so on. And these are the opportunities. And Korean companies are doing this already. So, for instance, Hyundai, with the participants from Hyundai, I have a frequent interaction. So that's possible already. Of course, during the standardization work, when the experts are working on that, this is closed. This is really, there's not an opportunity to intervene. Yeah? You can imagine this is really important to be independent from every, let me say, influence from outside. Yeah? But Korean companies are collaborating already. And these are the three opportunities how Korean companies can participate.
네, 감사합니다. 아까 이제 우리
Thank you. And if I look at the Thomas's presentation material, you talk about the pilot project using the standards. So if a Korean company could be involved in that project, wouldn't it be nice? So because SENSI is a European standardizing agency, so it was not possible for Korean to be involved. However, for LG Energy Solution, so Mr. John shared a lot of difficulties in responding to this new regulation. So in that sense, do you have anything to comment, Mr. John?
The European companies are facing the same challenges on that. Yeah? There are opportunities, but as well a lot of challenges. I told already, Mr. John, half of his challenges is already solved. So this is just an issue of information. The others are still complex, so this is not so easy. So this means with my client, the automotive OEM, we are discussing how to solve this since half a year and even more. So some of them are still challenging. Some of them we have to discuss how to make it better together with the European Commission. Of course, we have a law. There's a regulation, so we cannot jump away from that. But here we need some clarification, and we need this kind of process to implement and to, as I mentioned in the beginning, this is very new. But it is demanded. As I explained already, we have to keep the material in a circle. There is no way out. So, and based on this challenge, we have to work together. This is the issue behind.
Yeah.
To tell you, we have very, very open discussions with the participants from European Commission. So in our standardization, this is completely new. We have a monthly interaction with the persons who are responsible for the DPP system. This is normally not happen in standardization, that the standardization experts have this kind of exchange. This is new. So we invent at least new procedures how to cope with the global challenges, because above us there is a global challenge. There's no way out, so we have to find new ways. And this is the issue behind. This is the reason why I came to Korea here, in order to discuss with you, to know your concerns. Yeah? And what I see is you have by 90% the same concerns. It's okay.
네, 감사합니다. 어쨌든 이 센세넬렉에서 한 JTC 24의 일들이 이제 ICI
So I believe that the Sensenelec outputs will be also integrated with the other ISO, the standardization, and it will be addressed at the international level. And I believe that that's the current the progress currently underway. Of course, international collaboration will happen.
Mr. John, my question goes to you. So in this situation, there are a lot of difficulties and challenges that you shared with us. So what was the biggest difficulty that you were faced with, and how did you overcome that? And because we have guests from European countries, do you have anything to ask to them or ask for them? During my presentation, I shared a lot of difficulties that we faced it. When battery passport was first announced, at the same time, the blockchain was a very hot topic at the same time. So battery passport, is it blockchain? We were very confused about this new concept. And because for us, battery manufacturer, many of the blockchain platform people came to us and they gave us a lot of recommendation. They wanted to work with us to use the blockchain for this passport. Whether it be blockchain or not, I think it was the important thing was that blockchain was data carrier, passport was data carrier. The contents that we provide, the data that we provide was the most important part of it. So first thing we did was to internally learn about who owns what data is located where, and how to secure them, how to organize them. Those were the starting point. That was the first challenge. And second, I said there are a lot of data platform companies. Each client has different preference to the digital data platform. Some clients want this, some clients want that. So if we decide one platform, then it is very difficult to change that later on. So we wanted to start building something substantial within our organization, collecting data. In the end, in the future, there will be eventually some more standardization and some kind of harmonization. We are waiting for that. And one of the challenges that we had was, I mentioned it earlier, this data some kind of data is a confidential data for us. It's a business confidential data. If we have to disclose it, do we have to disclose it, or how do we keep that kind of business secret? So our clients want everything because as long as it's required by law. However, but if it's a business confidentiality and if there's a concern about competitors, the regulation says that you have to be careful about that. So from a third-party perspective, this may not be an issue, but for us, this is a very important topic. So if there was a clearer guideline about the business confidentiality, should we just provide this data? Should we just disclose our suppliers? So that's one thing that we find it most difficult. So blockchains, and before we move on to those new technologies, should we build something more centralized platform in Korea? Should we go for a more distributed system? Maybe in the JTC 25, we have a discussion about the standardization of the data space. In Korea, I talked many times about the importance of data space to the government. And for the data sovereignty, some people prefer to have its own data space, and that's what Japan said at the Uranos. But so if the government can do something like that, but that's not being done for the Korean companies yet. So if I start on that topic, I could talk for hours, so I will stop here. So my question goes to Mr. Kim. Because the government has some plans for used batteries, integrated management system for this used batteries, and we need to tap a new market. It's a new business opportunity. And what are the things that we have to do first to nurture this new business sector? For any sector to grow, I think there are 4 important factors. First, we need legislation. Next, technology. Third, safety. Fourth is market. These are the requirements for launching a market and growing the market. The first step is legislation. So in 2023, Battery Alliance was launched in Korea, so we submitted this recommendation to the government. And recently, because if the government leads, then it will take longer to proceed. So last month, it eventually passed the National Assembly. So within this year, it will be finally passed at the National Assembly level. Next year, maybe directives and the instructions will be announced. So I hope we have a legislation framework for Korean companies to respond to battery regulation. And number two, technology. We need a lot of R&D support for this used battery reuse and recycle. I hope the government extends its support to these R&D efforts. Third is safety. Safety of the battery is the priority. We need a public understanding. They have to feel safe because many people don't buy EVs because they're concerned about the safety of the batteries. Those people will never use used batteries. So companies like LG Energy Solution, with your R&D efforts, hope for you to manufacture safe batteries out of used batteries. And fourth is market. When there is a new market for used batteries, initially it will not be adopted by the private sector. The government has to lead that demand. The government has to procure that to build the market initially and then expand it for more individual consumers. I think that's the way to go. Thank you.
So in terms of battery passport, PPP, I think environment is another important aspect, especially on carbon footprint. How can we calculate these carbon and then we can have that on DPP? So my question goes to Mr. Puffen. So the product carbon footprint, especially on reporting, we all know how significant it is. But in reality, how can we implement that? And what kind of challenges do we have And then if you look at the presentation, some mentioned that it can actually create an opportunity and for our businesses. So what kind of challenges or what kind of benefits or opportunities do you have? Can you please share your thoughts?
Thank you very much, Dr. JJ. I think we may have to realize that the ask to those in the battery ecosystem is in fact very significant. We are asking those companies to take a lead when it comes to defining the metrics across the value chain. And just now in the presentation, we have also learned that a very significant part of the value chain actually is from the upstream. So roughly 60% plus actually comes from the upstream information. At the same time, they also have to consider what is the right infrastructure, right? Are we going to go to the cloud? What do we do on premise? What kind of platforms do we use perhaps, which are in the area of the data space and more general systems? And ultimately also the challenges in who are exactly the ecosystem players. I think it is fair to say that prior to regulations like the passport for batteries coming into effect, many of this information may not yet be so readily available within the battery manufacturing customers. So suddenly they have to take this consideration, which is why we feel that starting with the product carbon footprint is a reasonable start to make the assessment within your value chain and to document that data. Right. Primarily, it makes available the carbon emissions that are there within your own process and also in the upstream and downstream processes. But also, it is a good step to get greater proximity towards your suppliers and to be able to establish that relationship of data sharing. I think what we may want to avoid also is that the usage of generic data becomes intense in this process. Ultimately, what we are trying to recommend, at least from a technology point of view, is to make sure that what you establish in terms of data chain is as scalable as possible. Because at this point, the first priority is, how do I bring to the market a battery passport? One important pillar is, of course, the PCF. There are means which are directly within your control, your primary data. There are secondary data which are a lot tougher to extract. And of course, there is an opportunity to go for secondary databases for this. But once the product carbon footprint and the battery passport becomes more of a commodity, it in fact gets a bit of a competitive element to it. In which way you want to make sure you can deviate, compare, or even perform beyond your competition. Which is why also from Schneider's side, we are recommending and to explore how can I make sure that the data chain that I establish is as scalable and standardized as possible. Ideally having close to real-time insights into your value chain, which allows you to do re-evaluation of your PCF more quicker and more efficiently. I believe this is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. 벌써 시간이 벌써 지나.
We actually are behind the schedule. Despite that, why don't we get some questions from the floor? If you have any questions, please raise your hand and we will turn over the mic to you.
Life cycle assessment, and I calculate the carbon footprint for the companies, especially for the batteries. And my question is regarding the standardization of the carbon footprint. Like I examined all the guidelines of the carbon footprint, and my question is regarding the CFF, the circular footprint formula. I think it's highly dependent. It's really mainly on the European situation. It does not reflect the Korean situation. So it's really hard to calculate the CFF effects for the battery. And so what kind of efforts are going to happen in Europe, and how do you want to cooperate with the Korean companies and the government in order to make fully, calculate the carbon footprint for all the battery materials?
Because this is even difficult for the European companies. So, but I would, and I'm not an expert in all these ACA and all these things because I'm an IT guy, yeah? But I have to answer all the time all these questions. So what we do have is now a draft for the methodology as an outcome from the JRC. That's already happened since 23rd of June. So there is something, and of course, if you have still concerns and this is difficult, then I think it's really important to contact them, yeah, because this is really important from the data perspective, that's the first, because this is really for the batteries. The other is we do have different standardization mandates in Europe. One is for the system where I am responsible just for the techie IT issues. The other is for the data. And there's a mandate 579, which went as well to CEN, and they are elaborating exactly this methodology for the different types, means LMT for EVs and for the industrial batteries. So this is at least my answer. So there exist already committees doing that. There is this JRC, this is the Joint Research Center, and they are, I think, are open to answer to specific questions. And I know this ACA calculation issue is really a nightmare, because even there is one methodology, and we are, by testing different tools for that, we discovered a deviation between different tools, but running under the same methodology by 500%. So this is reality. So this means there is a lot of need for research, it seems to be. So it is difficult.
네, 질문 답이 되셨는지 모르겠습니다. 네.
The question?
한
One final question. Let's get one more final question from the floor.
패널 토론.
Thank you so much for the productive discussions. My question goes to Mr. John from LG Energy Solution. You talked about battery passport response, a lot of challenges and difficulties, and you talked about the need for standardized platform. I fully relate to that and hope everything works out very well. And my question is, when you talked about battery passport, you said you shared a mock-up version of the passport. You shared the pictures about that. And there were 107 data and also cell makers information, EV manufacturers information. So some of the confidential information will be included in the passport. And how how did you procure all that 107 data points from the supply chain? And how far along in the process of making a mock-up? So have you tested them? Because in EU, there's a data space platform. Did you try that, or any domestic data space companies are you working with or planning to use? So my question is about that. The passport mock-up was was a means to understand what data we have to secure. So it was a pilot project. When we didn't have certain data, so we didn't have an automatic system that feeds the data. We had to look up for the data in the organization. So we were not able to see how to feed that all different data points from different suppliers. For example, we have BOM data. That exists internally, so we use that. But when we actually make a passport for our battery products, at this point, we just confirm where those data exist. This is how far along for data space, about data space. So we just wanted to prepare internally. So we didn't work with. Of course, we had meetings with external data space platform suppliers. We don't have any concrete cooperation yet. So KITECH is requested by many customers, and Circular, a blockchain provider. We had meetings. We find the potential opportunities, but we did not make any concrete decisions yet. Thank you. Because we are running out of time, I'm sure you have more questions, but we have to wrap up at this point. I want to extend my gratitude to the speakers and the panelists. Please give them a big round of applause. Thank you.